Tonight we begin in the blistering heart of the ancient Persian Empire. You're not a noble, not a scribe, not a merchant hawking silk in the cool shade of a bazaar. No, you're a soldier, sort of. You didn't exactly volunteer. You woke up one morning with 2 working arms, 2 passable legs, and a vaguely patriotic heart. That was enough. Welcome to the Persian army. The pay is theoretical, the accommodations are imaginative, and the expectations are high, mostly that you'll survive long enough to march, sweat, and possibly scream when ordered. I'm the candlelight historian, and this is history as it was lived, unforgiving, unfiltered, and brutally real. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you truly enjoy these soft dives into humanity's loudest mistakes. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's strangely fascinating seeing these ancient horrors reach you across oceans and time zones. Now, relax, take a deep breath, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You were born somewhere dusty, probably rural, probably near a goat. Your family has just enough status to be ignored and just enough land to be taxed. The Persian Empire, massive, powerful, proudly bureaucratic, has many mouths to feed and many borders to defend. And like so many well-oiled empires, it handles its manpower needs with all the warmth of a desert windstorm. You don't remember exactly how the notice came. Maybe it was an official messenger on a tired horse. Maybe it was your uncle shaking you awake at dawn and muttering something about duty and not embarrassing the family. Maybe it was just a neighbor whispering, "They're picking men from the village today." And you, in a fit of optimistic foolishness, walked straight toward the sound of marching boots. Regardless, here you are. You're not quite sure if you've been recruited, drafted, conscripted, or casually stolen. But the result is the same. You're given a short speech about honor and empire, followed by a very long list of things you'll now be expected to carry. Starting with responsibility and a javelin. There's no boot camp, no orientation video. You're handed some clothing that smells like it's had a few previous owners and told to fall in. Which is military talk for stand around and hope someone shouts instructions at you soon. You don't even get a moment to adjust. 1 second you're harvesting barley, and the next, you're surrounded by other, equally confused men, all blinking into the sun like startled turtles. The officer assigned to train you has the facial expression of someone who's been disappointed by everything, including you. Now, officially, the Persian army prides itself on organization. Unofficially, it operates somewhere between chaos and bureaucratic pantomime. There's a lot of pointing, a lot of shouting, very little explaining. You learn quickly that the best way to avoid being shouted at is to copy whoever looks the least panicked. You try to ask what you're fighting for, but the answer is a sweeping hand gesture and the word order. That could mean anything. Territory, taxes, revenge for a cousin's insult. Or maybe someone just wanted to redraw a map. You meet your unit. It's a cheerful mix of farmers, potters, and men with suspiciously blank pasts. One of them has clearly never held a spear before. Another is polishing his sword like it's a family heirloom, which it might be, judging by the way he stares into it like it owes him rent. Your first meal as a soldier is forgettable. Not metaphorically, literally. You can't remember what it was. It tasted like salted bark, and it came in a wooden bowl that still had something sticky from the last person's dinner. You make a note to eat fast next time, before flavor has a chance to develop. As night falls, you realize you don't have a bed, or a blanket, or a pillow. You do have a patch of ground, which is shared with a man who snores like a broken war horn. You lie there, staring at the sky, wondering how long this will last. A week, a month. No one has told you. You try to get comfortable, but your tunic is scratchy. Your back is already sore, and the guy next to you just rolled onto your leg. You shift slightly. He shifts more. Eventually, you both give up and lie in a position that could generously be described as resigned. In the distance, you hear the murmurs of men who've done this before. Veterans. They're swapping stories of past battles, past wounds, and past commanders they'd happily push off a cliff. They laugh, but the laughter is dry and tired. Not joyful, just familiar. You drift off wondering if, one day, you'll be the one telling those stories, if you'll still have all your limbs, if you'll remember the names of the people beside you, or if they'll become just another blur in your memory of sweat, sand, and survival. For now, though you sleep, or try to, the night air is cold, the bugs are persistent, and someone nearby is definitely crying but doing a really bad job of hiding it. And that's your first day as a soldier in the mighty Persian army. Welcome aboard. The morning doesn't arrive. It ambushes you. There's no rooster, no gentle sunlight, no warm tea to coax your body awake. Just the sudden, bone-rattling yell of a man with no indoor voice and far too much enthusiasm for misery. Your name is screamed along with 20 others, none of them pronounced correctly. You sit up in a panic, only to remember that the thing poking your ribs wasn't a dream. It's just the one rock your sleeping patch didn't cover. Your back aches, your legs don't work. Your mouth tastes like stale dust and regret. But there's no time to stretch or blink or mutter curses under your breath. You are now expected to stand, form a line, and look vaguely motivated. The reward for this early rising. A welcome package of gear that's clearly been stored somewhere damp, forgotten, and deeply unloved. First, the tunic. It's rough wool, the color of dirty laundry, and smells like it's had a long and complicated relationship with mildew. You pull it over your head and immediately regret everything. The fabric scratches like it's been engineered to insult your skin. Next, the belt. It's just a leather strap, cracked and stubborn. You tighten it anyway, even though it seems mostly decorative. Your armor is minimal. If you're lucky, a thin padded vest or a piece of hardened leather that's definitely seen better days. Possibly centuries ago. It hangs off your body like it's not quite committed to the whole protection thing. Then comes your spear. It's long, wooden, and slightly bent. The metal tip is dull enough to butter bread, but still pointy enough to hurt you if you trip over it, which, judging by the terrain and your coordination, feels inevitable. You're also given a small shield, circular, made of wood with a metal boss in the middle. It's light, which you're grateful for, until you realize that's because it's mostly decorative and about as useful as holding up a frying pan in a lightning storm. There's no helmet. You ask about that. Your commander gives you a look that translates to, "You think we have helmets," and walks away. And don't get any big ideas about sandals either. The ones you've got were clearly made by a man who believed arch support was a sign of weakness. They are little more than leather straps and good intentions. You slide your feet into them, wince, and mentally prepare for a lifetime of blisters. Now you're fully dressed, fully armed, and fully uncomfortable. Training begins with posture. You're told to stand straight, shoulders back, chin up. Not because it'll help you fight better, but because it makes you look like less of a disappointment. One guy in your unit tries to adjust his stance and pulls something in his back. He spends the rest of the morning standing like a broken marionette. Next comes formation. You learn to march in a straight line, or at least in the general direction of one. This seems like it should be easy. It is not. One man starts veering left. Another forgets which leg to move first. The result is something between a parade and a very slow stampede. The commander sighs, loudly and often. He yells again, this time about how the Greeks don't trip over their own feet. This is a lie. You've heard stories about Greek soldiers accidentally spearing each other while sneezing. But now is not the time to be clever. You practice holding your shield and spear together. This is when you realize that your arms are shorter than your spear is ambitious. You nearly poke someone's eye out trying to turn around. He forgives you, but the look in his eye says, not again. Lunch is called. You don't get a choice in the matter. You sit in the dirt and are handed something loosely described as bread. It's a dry, unleavened slab that cracks instead of tearing and has the flavor profile of a scroll from a forgotten archive. There's also a small pouch of dried fruit, or what might be dried fruit. It's shriveled, sticky, and aggressively sour. Water is passed around in a communal goatskin. You sip and try not to think about how many other mouths have touched it. Too late, you thought about it. You hear someone whisper, "We haven't even seen combat yet." Another replies, "This is the combat." In the afternoon, your gear is inspected. A man whose job seems to be shout professionally grabs your shield, grunts, and throws it on the ground. He does the same with your spear, then waves you away like a disappointing side dish. Later, you're introduced to the concept of digging, not metaphorically, literally. Trenches, latrines, fire pits. You dig because someone told someone that soldiers need discipline. And nothing builds character like shoveling dry earth in the midday sun while your hands blister and your shoulders scream. When the sun finally dips low enough to stop hurting your eyes, you're allowed to rest, sort of. You're told to sit quietly and sharpen your spear, which is funny because you were never given a sharpening stone. So you rub it against a rock until something vaguely pointy happens. It feels ceremonial more than useful. As night falls again, you look around at the other new recruits. Their faces are red, tired, slightly dazed. One has a nosebleed. Another is already asleep, sitting up, head against his shield like it's a pillow. You try to lie down, but your back protests, and so does the rock that never seems to move from under your spine. You roll to one side and stare into the dark, and you realize this isn't a temporary inconvenience. This is now your life. Your uniform is scratchy, your spear is crooked, and your commander just told a joke no one laughed at but still expects morale to improve. No one claps. No one sings. Just the soft, collective rustle of men trying to sleep through the smell of sweat and anxiety. And you're still wearing the same clothes you were handed this morning. Morning greets you with a mouthful of dust and the sound of coughing. Lots of coughing. The kind that rattles deep in the lungs, like someone's trying to excavate their own chest. You sit up and immediately wish you hadn't. Your legs feel like they've been used for jousting practice, and your spine is still locked in negotiations with the ground. Breakfast arrives in the form of more flatbread and a chunk of onion the size of your hopes. It's dry, sharp, and aggressively pungent. There's also a handful of dried herbs that look like they were swept off the floor of a spice market. You chew them anyway. It's hard to tell if they're meant to be food or medicine or a mild punishment. Water is poured again from the communal goatskin. This time it smells faintly like wet wool and bad decisions. Still, you drink, slowly, conservatively. You've already learned not to finish anything, because there's no guarantee of when the next sip comes. Hydration is a luxury, and peeing is, quite frankly, a logistical nightmare when there's no privacy and the nearest designated spot is more suggestion than system. The heat starts rising by mid-morning. The air is thick and still. Your tunic begins sticking to you in places you didn't know could sweat. You glance around, hoping someone else looks as miserable as you feel. They do. Misery, it turns out, is the official uniform of the Persian infantry. You're called to form up again. This time, it's a short march to get used to the terrain, which is a generous way of saying get blisters somewhere new. The trail is dry, rocky, and uphill in all the directions. You march past bushes that look like they bite, and trees that gave up centuries ago. Your sandals collect pebbles like souvenirs. Every time your foot lands, a small cloud of dust puffs up and clings to your skin. Soon your legs are the color of old parchment. One guy in your group tries to brush the dirt off his face and just ends up smearing it like war paint. You silently admire the aesthetic. You also file it away in your brain for later. If you're going to be filthy, might as well be intentionally filthy. At the halfway point of the march, you're told to sit. This sounds like a blessing until you realize there's nowhere clean to sit. The rocks stab, the dirt itches, the ants are very territorial. So you hover awkwardly, one cheek perched on a root, while trying to stretch out a calf that's clearly given up. Conversation during rest breaks is always the same. Food rumors, blister counts, and theories about when this war, whatever it is, will actually start. You overhear someone whispering that the army hasn't even decided who they're invading yet. Apparently, it depends on politics, trade winds, and whether or not someone insulted the king's beard in public. You wonder if that's a joke. It isn't. The march resumes, but slower now. You're not alone in your hobble. Everyone's pace has downgraded from determined stride to resigned limp. Even the officer leading your group starts to droop a little, his voice growing hoarse with every barked command. Eventually, mercifully, the marching ends. You return to camp just in time for lunch, which is, predictably, more of the same: dry bread, boiled lentils, and something that may have once been a date or a beetle. You eat it before you can decide. Shade is scarce. There's one large cloth tarp strung between poles, but it's already occupied by the officers. You find a patch of shadow beside a large, suspiciously lumpy rock. You sit, lean back, and try to close your eyes. That's when the flies arrive. Huge, confident, veteran flies. The kind that don't just land, they strut. One lands on your lip. You swat. Another lands on your ear. You swat again. Eventually, you just wave your hand in front of your face in a slow, pointless fan, and accept that this is your life now. By mid-afternoon, someone faints. It's not dramatic. They just sort of fold downward, like a rug being rolled up. The medics arrive quickly, probably because they were already standing nearby, watching. They pour some water on his face, make a few concerned noises, and carry him away. You wonder if he'll be fed better in the infirmary. Dinner comes. It's slightly better. There's stew tonight. Granted, the stew tastes like regret and overcooked onion, but it's warm, and that counts for something. You eat slowly, cherishing every bland spoonful. Afterward, the men sit around, talking quietly. Someone pulls out a flute carved from bone and starts playing a slow, wobbling tune. It's barely music, more like an exhausted sigh set to rhythm. But it's strangely comforting. The firelight flickers on tired faces. Someone starts humming along. Another starts quietly snoring. You stare into the flames and think about how strange it is to miss a place you weren't all that fond of to begin with. Home, dirt floor, creaky roof, but at least it was your dirt. Someone beside you says, "I thought there'd be more glory." You nod. Not because you agree, because you're too tired to respond. And as you lie back on your scratchy mat, now damp from the humidity, and watch the stars blink overhead, one by one, you wonder how many of them are also looking down on men just like you, hungry, sore, and waiting. Always waiting. Your legs are already sore when they wake you. That's a bad sign. It's still dark out, which feels rude. Someone blows a horn that sounds like a dying goat, and you sit up, out of pure survival instinct. The camp stirs, grumbling, groaning, stretching in ways that clearly hurt. One man curses the sky. Another curses his own knees. There's no breakfast. Just water. The kind that tastes like it spent some time lost in a goat's bladder before finding its way to you. But you drink it. Slowly, you learned yesterday what thirst feels like when it lingers. You're told to form ranks, and before long, the column begins to move, marching again. Only this time, you're not going out for a scenic hike to nowhere. You're relocating, a new camp, a new spot closer to wherever this future war is happening. Maybe near a city, maybe near a border, or maybe just near enough to something your commander was told to stand beside and look intimidating. The sun hasn't even risen yet, but the march has already begun. You walk in silence at first, too sleepy to complain, too stiff to find your stride. The dirt crunches under your sandals. The rhythm is set by the officer's boots in front of you, the slow scrape thump of 100 feet shuffling forward. Then the sun starts to rise, and everything gets worse. The heat doesn't creep in, it pounces. One moment the morning is crisp and silent. The next, you're sweating through fabric that already smells like defeat. Your tunic clings like it's trying to merge with your skin. The air grows thick and heavy, with every breath tasting slightly of dust, effort, and someone else's breath. The pace is slow but relentless. It never feels fast, but it never stops. Just long enough for the ache to settle into your bones, and the rhythm to lull your brain into a dull throb. Your arms hang heavy by your sides. The spear you carry becomes a burden, then an enemy, then just part of you. Like an awkward limb that exists only to bump the man beside you. By midday, you've entered the part of the march where time no longer exists, just steps and heat. And that one guy 3 rows ahead who never seems to walk straight. He drifts slightly left every time he moves forward. And you hate him more than you've ever hated anything in your life. You pass through small villages. Sometimes the locals stare. Sometimes they ignore you. Occasionally they offer food or water. Usually it's just looks of pity. You don't blame them. You wouldn't feed this army either. Not out of fear, but out of empathy. Feeding soldiers means you have to smell them up close. At one point, you're allowed a short break. You don't sit, you collapse. Your body hits the ground like a sack of grain, and for a moment, the earth is the most comfortable bed you've ever known. Your knees throb. Your back pulses with dull heat. Your feet feel like wet clay. You don't even care what's under you anymore. Could be rocks, sticks, a snake. You're past the point of discrimination. A soldier next to you takes off his sandals. He shouldn't have. The smell is biblical. The blisters are a gallery of poor decisions and long miles. One is already leaking something that should not be seen in daylight. You avert your eyes and thank your past self for never removing yours. The scent alone could classify as biological warfare. Then the horn sounds again. Time to stand. You attempt to rise like a noble warrior. What actually happens is a long, slow, reluctant series of groans, lurches, and one loud crack from your lower spine. You stagger upright, blink against the sun, and resume the march. Your pack feels heavier. Now, it hasn't changed, but your shoulders have. What once felt manageable now feels like a boulder strapped to your spine. The water in your pouch is gone, evaporated, or spilled, you're not sure. Your lips are dry. Your mouth tastes like sandpaper and old lentils. The second half of the march is worse. Not because it's harder, because you know it's not over. Every step is a negotiation. Your feet have stopped speaking to your brain. Your legs are staging a slow mutiny. You fantasize about stubbing your toe on a rock just hard enough to be sent back to camp, but not hard enough to lose the toe. It's a weird line to walk, but it passes the time. Eventually, just as your body starts to feel like a walking corpse, the column halts. You've arrived. Your new camp is exactly like your old one, but dustier. The ground is flat, sun-baked, and dotted with thorny bushes that seem to exist solely to stab you when you're not looking. You're told to start setting up tents, which is charming since no one taught you how to do that. Still, by copying the person next to you and ignoring the person on your other side who has clearly given up, you manage to pitch a passable tent. It leans a little to the left. Much like you, it'll do. You lie inside, staring at the ceiling made of stretched cloth and threadbare hope. Outside, someone plays a drum. Not for morale, for orders. More marching tomorrow, probably. A new direction. A new reason. But for now, you're allowed to rest. You close your eyes. Not because you're sleepy, because there's nothing else to do. Your breath slows. Your body aches in a dozen places. You feel your heartbeat in your teeth. And just before you drift off, someone snores, loud, wet, unrepentant. You sigh and sleep anyway. You wake up with a pebble embedded in your heel and a spider in your blanket. Neither of them apologizes. The pebble you expected. Your sandals practically invited it in. But the spider is new. You flick it away gently, hoping it takes the hint. It doesn't. It stands its ground like it's paid rent. There's no time to argue with it. The horn sounds, and your body reacts before your brain has a chance to object. You groan your way upright, stretching limbs that feel like they've been folded the wrong way overnight. Today is mercifully not a marching day. Today is a standing day, the commander explains. If you can call barking and vague hand gestures, explaining that you'll be maintaining positions, preparing for movement, holding formation. All of this sounds very noble and militarily important until you realize what it actually means. Standing still, in the sun, wearing 50 pounds of regret. The sandals, which were barely holding together yesterday, are now actively sabotaging your feet. The straps rub, the soles slap, and worst of all, tiny rocks keep finding their way inside. Not sharp enough to justify stopping the line, but just sharp enough to remind you, with every single step, that nature is petty. You try removing the sandals for a moment during a break. Big mistake. The moment your feet touch the ground, they practically recoil. The earth is hot, gritty, and unforgiving. Your soles are swollen and red, with a couple of impressive blisters that now seem to have their own pulse. One of them might be forming a union. You slide the sandals back on with a hiss, carefully adjusting the strap to avoid the worst pain. You fail. There's no good position, only a choice between burns now and burns later. Still, you're not alone in your misery. A quick glance around shows a sea of pained expressions. One man limps like he's got a rock orchestra in his left shoe. Another tries stuffing wool inside his sandal as padding. It doesn't help. It only adds to the smell. By midday, your walk has turned into a sort of sad shuffle. You no longer lift your feet, just drag them forward like they're too emotionally exhausted to keep going. Every time the line moves, it's accompanied by a soft chorus of grunts, curses, and one dramatic sigh from the guy who always makes everything worse. Water break. Except the water's warm now. Body temperature. You gulp it down anyway, because hydration is slightly more important than flavor. Barely. The officer yells at someone for taking too long. That someone is you. You nod, because speaking feels like too much effort. You're given a new task. Terrain assessment. This, you quickly learn, is a fancy term for walk around in a large circle while someone pretends they're scouting. You shuffle with your group over dry grass, over pebbled earth, through a patch of thorny underbrush that claims a good portion of your dignity. You try to keep your mind off your feet. You count clouds. You imagine clean water. You try to recall what soft fabric felt like. It doesn't help. The terrain is uneven, full of hidden dips and loose stones. Every few steps, someone stumbles. One man actually goes down hard, landing with a dull thud and an unrepeatable curse. When he rises, his sandal is broken completely in half. There is a moment of silence. Morning, almost. Someone offers him a strip of cloth to tie it together. It holds, for now, but you can see in his face he's contemplating desertion, or death, whichever comes first. Eventually, you return to camp, your feet screaming in several dialects. Dinner is charitably edible. Flatbread again. Some kind of legume mash that looks like it was already eaten once. Still, you eat it. You even lick the bowl, because hunger makes pride negotiable. After eating, you sit with your back against a tree that's mostly shade and splinters. The conversations around you are soft and slow. No one jokes anymore. They just swap remedies for sore feet. Boil onion skins and wrap them, someone says. Rub sand into the blisters. Another suggests, earning looks of disbelief. One guy claims he's training himself to walk on the sides of his feet like a cat. He demonstrates. It looks painful. It is painful. He sits down mid-demonstration and starts crying quietly into his stew. You don't blame him. You lie back and lift your legs, trying to get blood flowing to anywhere else. Your ankles throb in rhythm with your heartbeat. You wiggle your toes. One doesn't respond. You pretend not to notice. Eventually, the firelight dims. The murmurs fade. A few men snore already, sprawled in crooked shapes across the hard ground. You place your sandals beside your bedroll and stare at them. They stare back. Somewhere in the distance, a wolf howls. Or maybe it's just someone stubbing their toe in the dark. You pull the blanket up to your chin, shut your eyes, and whisper a soft promise to your feet. Tomorrow, you'll rest them. You won't. But it helps to lie sometimes. You wake up in darkness, though the sky is beginning to hint at dawn with that dull grey light that makes everything look sadder than it already is. Your tent is damp, not soaked, just humid enough to cling to your skin like the breath of someone with bad news. You stretch your legs and immediately regret it. The blisters have matured overnight. They are now fully sentient and deeply resentful. The fabric of the tent smells like old wool, damp leather, and someone else's bad dreams. It's shared, of course. Not out of camaraderie, just economy. You and 3 other men were crammed into this space last night. And judging by the sounds you heard, one of them is a mouth breather, one talks in his sleep, and the third has a personal vendetta against lying still. The tent sags slightly in the middle, held up by 2 uneven poles, and what appears to be string once used to tie sheep. The floor is a mix of compacted dirt, discarded socks, and one deeply suspicious wet patch that no one has acknowledged out loud. You're not going to investigate. You've made peace with mystery. There's no fresh air in here, only breath, hot, stale, army breath. You fumble with the flap and crawl outside like you're being reborn into a worse world. The camp is quiet. Men rise slowly, rubbing eyes, adjusting armor, limping without ceremony. A few grumble about sore backs, aching shoulders, or rocks that seem to follow them from tent to tent like tiny, vengeful spirits. You do a quick stretch, not because it helps, but because it's the only way to pretend you still have some control over your body. Your shoulders crack, your knees creak, and your back pops like a poorly maintained scroll. Breakfast is not served, it's just available. Flatbread again. This time, it has a faint crunch that suggests either sand, gravel, or a very confused insect. You chew slowly, not because you're savoring it, but because you're giving your jaw time to warm up. After that, the officers call out orders. You're expected to pack your tent. This is hilarious, because your tent barely stayed up in the first place. Taking it down is less packing up camp and more disassembling shame. One pole collapses before you even touch it. The other resists with the tenacity of a stubborn goat before finally snapping in half. You wrap the cloth into something vaguely roll-shaped and tie it with the former sheepstring. There's a small chance you'll never see it again. You're okay with that. You help your tent mates gather their belongings. No one speaks. It's not rude, just practical. Words require energy, and energy is now reserved strictly for walking, standing, and occasionally sighing. Once the camp is cleared, you're assigned new positions. Not for marching, thankfully. No, today is defensive posture practice, which basically means build a new camp and then pretend to defend it from an enemy that does not exist. Your new assignment is digging. Again. You're given a spade that looks like it once served in 3 wars and possibly doubled as a boat paddle. The handle is cracked, the blade is dull, and it smells faintly of despair. You dig anyway. The ground is dry and rocky. Every scoop is a miniature battle. You alternate between shoveling and wiping your forehead, which now has a permanent layer of sun-baked dust. Your sweat turns it into a sort of paste. You don't bother cleaning it off. You're starting to look like a sculpture anyway. By midday, your hands are blistered, your forearms ache, and the trench is approximately deep enough to hide a small squirrel. You're told it's adequate, which is military code for we're too tired to care. You and your group take shelter under your tent cloth, which you've now reassembled into something between a lean-to and a philosophical concept. It blocks roughly 12% of the sun. You call it shade. You sit in it like royalty. The air inside the tent is even worse than before. Now it's humid with effort and tinged with the scent of overworked feet and underwashed soldiers. You can't tell who stinks anymore. Probably everyone. Possibly you. One of your tent mates pulls out a tiny satchel and sprinkles dried herbs on the floor. Keeps the smell down, he mutters. It doesn't. But you thank him anyway, because politeness still clings, barely, to your collective dignity. Sleep comes in short bursts, not because it's peaceful, but because your body is starting to take naps without your permission. You drift in and out, surrounded by the slow, rhythmic breathing of exhausted men and the distant sound of someone vomiting behind a bush. You wake up to the flap of the tent shifting. One of the men exits, dragging his spear, muttering about lice. You make a mental note to check your own scalp later. You won't. Dinner comes. A stew so thin it could be legally classified as tea. But it's warm, and it contains at least one recognizable vegetable. You sip it slowly, savoring the heat, even if the taste is something between boiled cloth and apathy. Night comes fast. You lie on your back, staring up through a gap in the tent roof. You can see the stars again. Distant, cold, perfect. Down here, in your damp cloth cave, your tent is still crooked. Your boots are still damp. And one of your tent mates is whispering something in his sleep about bees. But the stars are beautiful. And for a moment, just one, you almost forget that your back is molded to a rock. Your skin itches from sweat and dust, and your entire world smells like pickled feet, almost. You wake up with your face stuck to the inside of your elbow. It's sweat again. Your body has officially abandoned temperature regulation. You're somehow both clammy and dehydrated. The air inside your tent is thick enough to chew, and the blanket wrapped around you, once a thin, scratchy thing, is now a damp roll of regret. You push it off with a groan that startles a nearby beetle. Outside, the camp is already stirring. Today is a bathing day. Not because it's scheduled or logical, but because someone higher up decided the stench had reached tactical levels. Morale is dropping, not because of the heat or the food or the risk of death, but because you all smell like fermented onions wrapped in despair. So bathing it is. You line up near a makeshift washing station, which is nothing more than a few barrels of warm water and some questionable rags. There's no soap, there's no privacy, there's definitely no dignity. Just a line of half-naked men trying to scrub 3 weeks of field life off their bodies before the water turns into soup. When it's your turn, you strip off your tunic, which peels away from your skin with an audible sheck. Your body is covered in dust, salt, and weird patches of rash that probably have names in old medical scrolls no one reads anymore. The water in the barrel smells like moss and hope. It's been used already by several men, but it's wet and not on fire, so you go for it. You scoop it over your head and gasp. It's not even cold, just a shock to the system. The dust turns to mud on your skin. You rub it off with one of the rags, which might once have been white, but now looks like something a donkey coughed up. You scrub quickly. Every second is a negotiation between cleanliness and the fear that someone behind you is staring. You're not sure if they are, but it feels like they are. And that's enough. The water runs down your legs and forms puddles in the cracked earth. You look down at your feet. They're a mess, blistered, bruised, stained. You consider scrubbing them, then decide against it. They've suffered enough. A shout from the front of a line signals your time is up. You rinse one last time, pull on your still damp tunic, and step aside, leaving the barrel slightly browner than before. You avoid eye contact with the next man in line. After bathing, you feel 2% better. That's the best anyone can hope for out here. Back at your tent, you lay your arms out in the sun, trying to dry off while swatting away flies that appear to have memorized your scent. One lands on your nose and just sits there. You stare at it. It stares back. You lose the staring contest. Your tent mates return one by one, all equally soaked and equally unimpressed. One of them announces that he found something growing under his armpit. He doesn't elaborate. You all choose to let it go. Then comes laundry, a generous term. You're given a handful of water and a rock. That's it. You slap your tunic on the rock, pour the water, and hope for divine intervention. It doesn't come. What you achieve is less clean and more less visibly awful. There's no line for drying, just bushes, sticks, and optimism. You hang your tunic across a bent tree branch and pray the wind doesn't take it. You sit in your undergarments and try not to look at anyone else. This is when it hits you. The smell is better. Not good, but better. You can actually breathe through your nose again. It's unsettling, like the silence before a storm. You're almost more comfortable when things are awful. Improvement makes you suspicious. The sun climbs higher. Your damp hair bakes under it, slowly transforming into something crispy. Your skin tightens with dryness. The rags you used for washing lie discarded like fallen flags of hygiene. A horn sounds. You're told to gather for an inspection. Still in your undergarments, you scramble to retrieve your mostly dry tunic. Now slightly less foul and at least 3 shades paler from the sun. You slide into it with a wince. It's stiff, oddly shaped, and now carries the faint smell of wild herbs you didn't put there. You line up. A commander walks past, arms behind his back, eyes scanning for weakness. He pauses in front of one man whose tunic is clearly inside out. No words are spoken, just a long, disappointed stare. Then he moves on. When he reaches you, he nods once. You're not sure if that's approval or acknowledgement of your ongoing suffering. Either way, it feels like a win. After inspection, you're sent back to camp with no new tasks. An actual moment of peace. You take a seat near a crooked post that casts a sliver of shade. You close your eyes and feel the light breeze, warm but merciful. The faint scent of wood smoke drifts in from a cooking fire. Someone nearby is humming a tune from back home. The notes are shaky, but they carry something that smells faintly like memory. You lean back, arms behind your head, feet stretched out, and think, that might be the cleanest you'll feel for the rest of this campaign. And even though your skin itches a little, your stomach is still half empty, and a beetle just climbed into your sandal, you let your shoulders sink. Because right now, in this brief, slightly less filthy moment, you feel human again. The stew tonight is beige. Not in the poetic sense. Not warm, earthy beige or subtle, creamy beige. No, this is literal beige. A colorless blob of lentils, mystery paste, and something with the texture of boiled sock. It slouches in your wooden bowl like it's disappointed to be here. You stir it with a stick. It's not a proper spoon. No one has those anymore. The few that did have long since traded them, lost them, or snapped them in half during an argument over portion sizes. You use the stick like you're stirring paint, hoping to discover a flavor at the bottom. No luck. You take a bite. It tastes like temperature. That's it. Warmth. No salt, no sweetness, not even the bitterness of burnt food. Just warm. If this stew had a personality, it would be beige in that way too. Polite, inoffensive, and deeply forgettable. Across from you, someone's chewing very slowly, eyes unfocused. You ask what they think. They blink, nod, and mutter, "At least it's soft." That's the highest praise dinner has received all week. You swallow another mouthful and immediately chase it with a sip from your water skin. The water is metallic today. like it was stored in a helmet that once belonged to a man with poor dental hygiene. Still, it washes the stew down, and that's all that matters. Someone nearby lets out a long sigh and announces that he'd give his left foot for a date. Everyone laughs. Too hard. Maybe it's the exhaustion. Maybe it's the lack of actual dates, romantic or edible. Either way, it becomes a brief, ridiculous moment of collective joy. You laugh too, mouth full of lentils, nearly choking. It's the closest thing to dinner conversation you've had in a week. After eating, there's cleanup. Not much to do, really. You lick the bowl clean, more out of principle than hunger, and toss the stick into the fire. The ash crackles. A few embers leap into the air, swirling upward like tired fireflies. Then comes the worst part of the evening, latrine duty. It's your turn. You knew it was coming. Everyone has to do it eventually, but still, there's a special kind of existential crisis that happens when someone hands you a wooden bucket and points toward the trench. You walk slowly, like a man heading to trial. The latrine trench sits just beyond the edge of camp, dug behind a few shrubs that provide almost no cover. It's a shallow pit, regularly stirred with a stick that should probably be buried and forgotten. The smell meets you before the trench does. You close your mouth and breathe through your nose. Big mistake. Now you can taste it. Your job is simple. Pour in ash. Stir the contents with the stirring stick of suffering and shovel in some dirt. That's it. Just enough to keep the swarm of flies from forming their own militia. You try not to look. You fail. You see things. Things you'll remember during future meals. Eventually, it's done. You walk back to camp with the same dazed expression every soldier wears after latrine duty. A mixture of humility, horror, and the quiet knowledge that you'll be back. You rinse your hands in the barrel. It helps, but not enough. You'll never feel clean again. Just cleaner. Night falls. You and a few others sit around the fire. Someone offers you a bit of dried fig, saved from weeks ago. It's chewy, sour, and gone in 2 bites, but for a moment, it feels like dessert. Another man pulls out a tiny pouch of spices. Real ones, imported, probably stolen, definitely treasured. He sprinkles a pinch into his water. The smell is divine like cinnamon and dreams. Everyone leans in. He holds the pouch like it's a relic. From Susa, he says, "My brother sent it." You nod with genuine reverence. In this world of boiled lentils and beige broth, a bag of spices is a miracle. Later, you return to your tent. You lie down, stomach full enough not to rumble, and stare at the canvas above. Your mind wanders. You think about food back home, roasted lamb, fresh fruit, honey dripped over soft bread, the sound of your mother humming in the kitchen, the weight of a warm bowl in your lap. Then someone rips a loud fart on the other side of the tent. You snap back to reality. The silence breaks into a chorus of tired chuckles and one half-hearted sorry. You smile, sort of. Because this is army life. Food is bland. Water is suspect. Privacy is mythical. But sometimes, in between the beige and the bugs and the buckets, you get a moment, a joke, a fig, a pinch of stolen spice. And for one warm, weird, fleeting second, it almost feels like home. You can hear the shouting before your eyes even open. Not panicked shouting, just the usual, daily kind, the background noise of the Persian army. It's the familiar tone of a commander yelling at someone for something no one understands, while everyone else pretends not to be listening. You roll over, your blanket clings to your back like a damp sheet of moss. your shoulder cracks, your neck refuses to turn more than 15 degrees. You mutter something resembling a curse, then sit up and prepare for another day of heroic mediocrity. Today is a drill day. The officers have decided that the army needs to refine unit discipline. That's military speak for everyone run around while we yell and pretend this is productive. You shuffle out of the tent and gather in formation, where you're immediately reminded that your shield is still slightly warped and your spear has a split down the side. In exchange for your sandals, you almost agreed. That's how bad things are. You considered becoming barefoot, just to avoid holding a weapon that might snap in half if you look at it wrong. But you declined. The sandals may be useless, but there you're useless. The morning drills begin. Formations first. You're told to stand in lines, then in squares, then in some arrangement that looks like a child's drawing of a centipede. No one knows what it's for. The commander bellows about Greek phalanxes and discipline. You try to nod like you understand. You don't. Neither does anyone else. Then come the charges. This is the worst part. You're told to run forward in formation. Spears lowered. Shields up. You do. You all do. It's clumsy. It's sweaty. It's painful. The ground is uneven. Your shield rattles against your wrist like it's trying to escape, and someone behind you keeps stepping on your heel. The officer screams, "Faster." You want to scream back, try it yourself. But you don't, because you're not stupid. You run, you wheeze. You stop, then you do it again and again. Each time, your formation dissolves a little more. One guy always runs too far ahead. One guy always trips. Someone else holds his spear the wrong way. And by the end of the fourth charge, he's accidentally jabbed to people in the thigh. No one cries, but the cursing is beautifully creative. You take a water break. The goatskin is nearly empty and smells like it spent the night in someone's boot. Still, you drink. Then you pour a few drops over your head and pretend that helps. Now it's time for shield wall defense, which means huddling together, shields locked, while a different group runs at you full speed. It's like a trust fall, but with bruises. You lower your shield, brace your legs, and prepare. They hit. Your shield slams back into your face. Your shoulder jolts. Someone's helmet hits you square in the ear. You manage to stay upright, but your foot slides in something that might be mud or someone's lunch. Either way, it's slippery and deeply unpleasant. You reset the line, do it again. This continues for hours. Lunch is skipped. One officer yells, "You'll eat when you earn it," which is hilarious, because the only thing you ever earn around here is new forms of pain. By the time the sun reaches its highest point, your arms are shaking. You can't tell if your shoulder's bruised or just finally falling apart. Your back is on fire. Your knees are begging for retirement. One final drill. Throwing spears. You line up, take aim at a wooden target shaped vaguely like a man, and hurl your spear with what's left of your strength. It travels about 8 paces, wobbles mid-air like a confused duck, and lands tip first in the dirt. The officer raises an eyebrow. You shrug. The next man's spear hits the ground before leaving his hand. The one after that hits a tree, not the target, just a completely unrelated tree. By the end of the line, only one person hits the wooden dummy, and even he looks surprised. The commander says nothing, just turns and walks away. You all take that as permission to collapse. Dinner is late. When it arrives, it's just more stew. You don't complain. No one complains. You eat it in silence, too tired for sarcasm. The bowl could be full of gravel and sadness, and you'd still finish it. Back in the tent, you drop onto your bedding and don't move. Your shield is still strapped to your arm. You don't care. Let it stay. Let it fuse with your body. One of your tent mates mutters, "I think my rib is broken." You ask, "Left or right?" He groans, "Yes." You both laugh. It's dry and brief, but it's still laughter. As the fire outside dies down and the last few voices fade into mumbling and snoring, you stare at the flap of the tent, gently flapping in the breeze. You wonder if the officers actually believe these drills will help, or if they just enjoy the noise. You close your eyes, shield still on, spear still beside you, legs still vibrating from the impacts, and you fall asleep thinking, tomorrow might be worse, but at least you won't be surprised. Your legs no longer hurt. That's not good news. It just means the pain has leveled up into something else, something deeper, less sharp, more constant. Like your bones have been replaced with warm wood and regret. You wake up and swing your feet onto the ground, then pause. Your knees send you a message. The message reads, "No. Today is drill day again, but a different kind of drill. One designed specifically by someone who must have hated knees, shield lifting, spear lunging, over and over and over. It's like someone read the definition of repetition and thought it sounded a little too easy. You're herded into formation before the sun has fully risen. The dew on the grass dampens your sandals, which were already in their final form. Soggy sadness. You take your position in the long, uneven line and prepare yourself for more exercises that will definitely not improve your chances of survival, but will absolutely destroy your quadriceps. It begins with posture drills. You're told to stand still with your shield raised and your spear upright. That's it. Hold that. Don't move. You do. For a minute, then 2, then 5. By minute 8, your shoulder starts to shake. You try to adjust without looking like you're adjusting. You fail. The officer sees. He says nothing, which is worse than saying something. Your arm is screaming. Your back is seizing up. You glance sideways at the man next to you. He's trembling like a leaf in a storm, but his face is locked in a heroic grimace. You try to match it. You end up with more of a confused squint. Finally, the order is given. Lower arms. You drop your shield and immediately regret it. The blood rushes back to your fingertips in a way that makes you question every life choice that led you here. Then come the spear drills. You jab forward, and again, and again. The commander yells, "Thrust like your life depends on it." You're too tired to yell back. It doesn't. My life depends on the fact that I don't trip on a rock and impale myself. So you thrust again. The spear wobbles slightly with each movement, like it's also unsure of your commitment. Your knuckles ache from gripping it too hard. Your feet slide in the dirt. One man behind you stabs the ground so hard he pulls a worm up with the blade. You train like this for hours. Sweat forms in your ears. Your legs buzz. Your wrists burn. The officers occasionally wander through the lines, shouting things like form and precision. And the Greeks are watching, as if that last one means anything anymore. By mid-morning, someone passes out. It's not even dramatic. He just drops, like a puppet with the strings cut. No warning, the line shifts around him, and the drill continues. Eventually, a medic drags him to the shade. You envy him. Then it's time for team maneuvers, which means group misery. Your unit is instructed to move as one. Turn left, thrust, turn right, step back, repeat, over and over. But no one is in sync. You're too tired, too sore, and too busy not falling over. One guy in your row keeps turning the wrong direction. Every time, like clockwork. You think he's doing it on purpose. Maybe for a laugh. Maybe just to see if the officer finally combusts from rage. The officer doesn't. He just shakes his head slowly and says, "Unacceptable." Which is impressive, because everything has been unacceptable for weeks. And this is the first time he said it. After lunch, which is a thin smear of lentils over dry bread that cracks like old pottery, you're told to dig in. Literally. You're shown how to build a shield wall and a trench in front of it. Then you're told to practice under fire, except there's no real fire. Just rocks thrown by another unit pretending to be the enemy. You crouch behind your shield while small pebbles rain down on you like angry hailstones. One hits you in the eye. Not hard, just enough to make you want to go home forever. Eventually, the enemy is pushed back, and the drill ends. You sit in the trench, covered in dirt and bruises, shield resting on your thighs, and wonder if this is the part where someone offers congratulations. No one does. Dinner arrives early, or maybe you just lost track of time. It's more stew, always stew, with fewer lentils today and more something. You don't ask. You just eat it while it's hot and pretend it doesn't taste like disappointment. After dinner, you're dismissed to rest. You walk slowly, partly from exhaustion, partly because your knees no longer bend. Your spear drags behind you like a reluctant pet. Back in your tent, you collapse onto the floor with the kind of noise a barn makes during a thunderstorm. Your tent mates do the same. The silence between you is sacred. Someone farts. No one reacts. Eventually, someone mutters, "We're not ready for battle." No one argues. You close your eyes and try not to think about the bruises forming under your skin, the way your wrists throb with each heartbeat, or the fact that tomorrow, without fail, you'll be doing this all over again. Because practice makes perfect. But in the Persian army, practice mostly makes pain. You're awoken by shouting, not the usual barked drill commands, or the daily move, faster or else voice from your commander. This is different, urgent, frantic, a note of real tension, like someone finally remembered there's a war happening. You sit up fast, which your back resents immediately, and grab your spear. Your shield is somewhere. You hope. The camp is moving, quickly. Runners dart between tents. Officers shout things that don't seem to match. One tells you to form up. Another says to gather supplies. A third yells something about horses, even though you haven't seen a horse in days. No one seems to know exactly what's happening, which means something is definitely happening. The rumors begin immediately. They're here. Who? Doesn't matter. You form ranks, spears up, shields in place. You look around, and that's when it hits you. Nobody knows who the enemy is. You're all standing here, sweat already starting to form, knees trembling slightly, waiting for an opponent who may or may not exist. Someone whispers that it might be the Greeks. Someone else says, "No, it's rebels." A third insists it's just a drill and everyone's panicking for nothing. That guy gets hit in the face with a bag of tent poles a moment later. Probably deserved. Your commander finally arrives on horseback, which feels a bit unfair, and confirms that yes, there is indeed an enemy in the area. A scouting party saw movement near the ridge. That's it. That's all you're given. Vague movement. Could be an army. Could be a traveling merchant with a very confident walk. Doesn't matter. You're being repositioned. You begin to march. Again. This time, It's not a long trek, just up the hill, closer to the supposed sighting. But the tension is different now. You're not bored or sore. You're alert and terrified. Every rustle in the brush becomes a possible ambush. Every distant bird call sounds like a signal. You grip your spear tighter. Your hand is sweaty, and it keeps slipping. You wipe it on your tunic, which is already soaked with old sweat and new panic. Once you're in position, the officers direct you to crouch behind some hastily gathered brush. It offers no real cover, but it gives the illusion of preparation. You settle in, you wait and wait and wait. This is what no one tells you about war. Most of it is waiting. The enemy doesn't arrive on cue. There's no announcer saying, "Prepare yourselves." Just the wind and the heat, and the thousands of ways your mind can imagine what might happen next. The hours stretch out like they're mocking you. The sun climbs. Your armor heats up like a cooking pot. Your lower back cramps from crouching too long. You shift positions, constantly trying to look vigilant, but also trying not to pass out. The man beside you asks, "You ever kill anyone before?" You don't answer. You haven't. And you don't want to say that out loud, because right now, your spear feels useless. Like a decoration. Something people wave to look brave. Suddenly, a noise, movement in the distance. Everyone tenses. You grip your weapon. Shields go up. Someone behind you whispers a prayer to a god you've never heard of. Then, a goat. It walks out from behind a bush, sniffs the air, and continues chewing grass like it owns the battlefield. Silence, then laughter. Nervous, slightly hysterical. A few men fall backward into the dirt. One cries. You don't laugh. Not because it isn't funny, but because your jaw is clenched too tight. An officer confirms what everyone now suspects. False alarm. The enemy, if they were ever there, have vanished or never existed. Still, the commanders decide to keep the line formed for another hour, just in case. You're told it's a test of discipline. You suspect it's punishment for relaxing. Eventually you're allowed to return to camp. No one cheers. No one speaks. You just walk in a slow, stiff silence. Back at camp, the stew is cold. Not because the fire died, but because no one remembered to eat it while it was warm. You sip it anyway. Even fear doesn't kill hunger. Later that night, you sit around the fire with your unit. The mood is quiet, not somber, just flat. Someone starts sharpening his spear, even though it's already dull and always will be. Another man carves a symbol into his shield. You watch them, tired, eyes heavy, head full of too many thoughts, and not enough answers. You realize something strange. You're more afraid of not knowing who the enemy is than you are of the enemy itself. Because when the attack comes, you'll fight. But until then, you wait and wait and wonder. It's been 3 days. 3 days of staring at a wall. Not metaphorically, literally. A siege has begun. You and your unit have been ordered to camp outside the stone perimeter of some unnamed city in the middle of nowhere. You don't know what the city's called. You don't know who lives in it. You don't know why you're here. But you do know this. It's not opening its gates anytime soon, so you wait. Watching, rotating guard shifts. Listening for sounds of movement on the other side. The city wall is tall, smooth, and unmoved by your presence. The people behind it are silent, or just smart enough not to shout back. Siege warfare, it turns out, is 10% battle, 90% extreme boredom. Your days begin with the same routine. Wake up, Shake dust out of your sandals. Chew on dried bread so tough it could double as roofing material. Then take your place in the long, tired line of men posted to monitor enemy activity, which is code for squint at bricks for 6 hours and try not to fall asleep standing up. The city offers no reaction, no projectiles, no parley, nothing. Your commander paces behind you, barking orders just to prove he still exists. He occasionally mutters something about psychological pressure, as if your collective body odor is part of a brilliant strategy. The most exciting moment all day is when a single arrow sails over the wall and lands in the dirt 20 feet away. It doesn't hit anyone, it's barely sharp, but everyone crowds around like it's treasure. Warning shot, someone says. Invitation, someone else jokes. Bad aim, says the guy who's seen real combat. Either way, it's the highlight of the morning. Back in camp, life slows to a crawl. Supplies are limited. Meals are reduced. The stew is now mostly water, with the occasional lentil floating like a lonely boat. Bread rations are halved. You try gnawing on yours slowly, like it's a treat, but end up swallowing it before your teeth can even soften the edges. You grow familiar with hunger. It sits with you at night. It walks beside you during your watch shift. It whispers in your ear when you see someone hoarding dried dates in his pack and wonder how heavy the punishment would be if you just took one. Bathing stops entirely. There's no water to spare. You smell like everything you've eaten, worn, and thought about. Your skin is sticky, your clothes are stiff, and your tent now radiates an invisible fog of warm, human suffering. Flies love it. They throw little parties on your face every time you close your eyes. The only thing worse than the stench is the tension. You can feel it settling into the camp. Nobody says it, but everyone senses it. There's no plan, no siege towers, no ladders, just waiting. Endless waiting. The kind that erodes morale like water against rock. Whispers begin to spread. One man claims a scout saw movement from the rear of the city. Another says reinforcements are coming from their side. And someone insists the city's already out of food and close to surrender. No one believes any of it. You begin to suspect the officers don't know what they're doing. They pretend to look busy. They ride their horses in slow loops. One spent an entire afternoon rearranging rocks in front of his tent. Strategically, he said. Artistically, you thought. The heat doesn't help. By noon each day, the sun turns the entire field into a giant oven. Armor burns your skin. Sand gets into your socks, your eyes, your food, your soul. Shade becomes currency. You and 3 others take turns sitting in the shadow cast by a wagon wheel. It's only wide enough for one person at a time, so you rotate every half hour. Someone suggests drawing lots. Someone else suggests not drawing attention. Then night comes. Cooler, yes, but worse in its own way. The silence becomes oppressive. The wall in the moonlight seems taller, older, smugger somehow. Campfires burn low. Men speak in murmurs. Every twig snap makes half the camp flinch. You lie awake in your tent, staring up at the sagging canvas ceiling. You've read the same arrowhead-shaped patch of mold 50 times. It's starting to look like a map of home. Sleep comes in fragments. You drift off, only to wake moments later, convinced you heard footsteps. You didn't, or maybe you did, who knows. When you're finally allowed to sleep for real, it's not rest. It's a truce between your body and gravity. Your legs twitch in your sleep. Your jaw clenches. You dream of walls, stone walls that go on forever, and your commander yelling at them. convinced shouting will make them fall. You wake before dawn, covered in sweat, and crawl out into the cold. The city is still there. So is the wall. So are you. You start to wonder who's actually winning this siege. Because from where you're standing, it's not them. At some point, it stops being exciting. The idea of battle, of glory, of proving yourself in the heat of combat, that faded days ago. Maybe weeks now, it's just noise. And when it finally comes, it doesn't feel like a moment. It feels like an accident. It starts with a horn blast, high and sharp and unfamiliar. Not your side, theirs. You sit up mid-bite, a chunk of stale bread still in your mouth, and glance toward the wall. Movement, real movement this time. Figures appear along the battlements, small, distant shapes. Someone yells, shields, before anyone knows what's happening. Then, the first arrow flies. It doesn't hit anyone. It just thuds into the dirt like a warning. A few men duck, a few others freeze. Your heartbeat spikes and then forgets how to slow down. Form up, form up. Your commander yells, and now it begins. The army scrambles. You're suddenly part of a river of bodies, all clanking, cursing, colliding. You shove your shield onto your arm, grip your spear tightly, and try to find your place in the chaos. You've drilled for this, sort of. Not really. This isn't the controlled chaos of practice. This is actual chaos. Orders come from everywhere and nowhere. Advance. Hold the line. No, back. Not that back. A group of infantry charges forward too early. They're peppered with arrows, then pulled back. Your unit is still in formation, barely. Shield wall up. Spears angled forward like you're presenting a bouquet of pointy regret. Then comes the charge. The gate opens. Not fully, just enough to let a force through. Dozens of them, all sprinting across the field toward your side. They're fast, too fast. You want to run, you don't, mostly because you can't. Your legs are rooted or frozen. The clash happens like lightning. No long speeches. No dramatic standoff. 1 second, you're gripping your spear and trembling. The next, you're pushing it forward into a blur of color and sound and dust and limbs. You strike something, maybe a person, maybe a shield, you don't know. Your arm recoils from the impact, and someone slams into you from the side. You fall, hit the ground, taste dirt. Someone screams nearby. Another sound, wet, awful. You scramble back up, barely missing a boot to the face. Your shield is gone. No idea where it landed. You grab your spear with both hands and swing wildly at whatever moves. There is no finesse, no form, just fear. The sounds around you are animalistic. Grunts, howls, the horrible thud of metal on flesh. You see a man you trained with take a blow to the leg. He drops, clutching it, eyes wide. You want to help. You also want to live. You keep moving. You're herded backward with the others. Stumbling, sweating, slipping in the mud that somehow appeared beneath your feet. Is it blood? Water? It doesn't matter. Then suddenly, they retreat, just like that. They vanish behind the gate, and you're left blinking, gasping, surrounded by moaning men, broken spears, and a fine mist of dust still hanging in the air like smoke. It lasted 5 minutes, maybe less. You look down, you're shaking, all over. You don't even remember being hit, but your hand is bleeding. A scratch, probably. A lucky one. The camp is in shambles. Officers yelling. Medics already running. A few bodies lie scattered. You recognize two of them. You don't look at their faces. Someone claps you on the back, says something like you made it, and walks away. You don't remember who it was. Eventually, you find a patch of ground and sit. Not because you're told to, but because you have to. Your legs aren't interested in standing anymore. A bowl of something is placed near you. You don't eat it. You just stare at it, trying to make your hands stop shaking. Hours pass. No second attack. You lie on your side in the dirt and listen to the camp settle. The wounded cry out. The fires crackle. Someone sings a song no one knows the words to. And for the first time in your life, you realize you were in a real battle, not a story, not a dream, not a drill. And the worst part, you're not even sure what side you're on anymore. The sun rises the next day, but no one celebrates it. The camp is quiet, not peaceful, just subdued, like the aftermath of a storm. You sit up slowly, your body aching in strange, specific ways. A bruise on your hip that wasn't there yesterday. A cut on your hand, crusted over now. Your neck refuses to turn left. You don't even ask why anymore. You already know the answer. Yesterday happened. You survived. Somehow, but something about you feels different now. Not stronger, not proud, just older. Like the battle peeled off a layer of something soft, and now what's left is harder. Brittle, maybe, but harder. Around you, others are waking. Some limping, some coughing. A few still asleep, their breaths shallow, their blankets stiff from sweat and dust. You make eye contact with one man across the camp. Neither of you speaks. You both just nod, like survivors of some shared accident. There's no breakfast, or rather, there is, but no one seems to care. A pot of mush sits over a low fire. The kind of meal that tastes better when you're starving and worse when you remember how it's made. You take a few bites out of habit, not hunger, then toss the rest into the dirt. A goat wanders over and sniffs it, then walks away. Even the goat knows better. Orders come down. Clean the camp, patch the gear, count the living. That last part hangs heavy in the air. You're not assigned to burial duty, but you pass by the group that is. They're digging long trenches just beyond the camp, the kind that don't require names or prayers. Just space. You look away. Your spear is bent. You didn't notice yesterday, but now it's obvious. The shaft is cracked just beneath the tip. It could break in the next fight, or the one after that. You bring it to the quartermaster and ask for a replacement. He shrugs. We're out. He gestures to a pile of discarded weapons, most of them warped, chipped, or sticky for reasons no one wants to explore. You pick a new spear, not because it's better, but because it's less broken. That's as good as it gets now. The shield is easier. You find one with fewer dents than yours, and make the swap without asking. Nobody notices. Or if they do, they don't care. After repairs come the stories. Not official ones. Those come later, carefully cleaned up and fed to officers who write them down in scrolls they'll never read again. These stories are the whispered kind, around fires, in tents, while sharpening weapons or bandaging wounds. I saw a guy take 3 arrows and keep fighting. Someone lost a finger and didn't notice until dinner. Did you see that one with the blue scarf? Took down 5 men. None of it is verified. None of it matters. You tell your own version, not heroic, just accurate. I dropped my shield, got knocked over, swung until something hit me back. The others nod. That's enough. Truth isn't about glory here. It's just about being true. In the afternoon, a messenger arrives. Not from the city, from your side. He carries a scroll, unreadable at a glance. But judging by the muttering among the officers, it means one thing. You're staying here longer. Everyone groans, no one argues. That night, you sit near the fire with a small group. A few you know. A few you fought beside. One of them pulls out a tiny leather pouch and reveals something miraculous. Dried figs, real ones, sweet, sticky, actual flavor. He shares them. 1 fig per person. No more. You bite into yours like it's treasure. It is. The sweetness cuts through the salt crust in your mouth, the dry numbness in your soul. You chew slowly. No one speaks while they eat. It's too sacred. Afterward, someone starts humming. The same tune you've heard before, but this time a few others join in. Low, soft, barely audible over the crackle of the fire. You don't know the words, and neither do they. But it doesn't matter. The song isn't for the ears. It's for the heart. You lean back against a log and let the warmth of the fire kiss your legs. The stars are faint tonight. Clouds drift overhead. Maybe rain is coming. You hope so. Not because it'll clean you, but because it'll make everything pause for a little while. Rain makes noise. Rain makes mud. And in mud, nobody wants to march. Not even officers. You shift your legs, sigh, and look around. You're still here, still whole, mostly, still breathing. But the part of you that arrived at this camp a few weeks ago, that part is gone. It didn't die, it just shed. What's left is something leaner, harder, quieter. You stare at the flames, and in the dancing orange glow, you wonder, not for the first time, if you'll ever feel like a normal person again. Then someone farts loudly and blames the stew. You laugh, not because it's funny, but because it's human. And for now, being human is enough. The war doesn't end, you just leave. Not in a triumphant march home, not with medals or songs, or someone crying joyfully in the streets. You leave because someone higher up decided this battle no longer matters. Or perhaps it never really did. A new front has opened. A more important city needs troops. Or maybe the supplies have finally run out and they've realized hungry soldiers don't win wars. They just become problems, so they pack you up. There's no ceremony, no farewell, just a shouted order, a hurried bundling of gear, and a line that forms before the sun rises. You stand there, your shield strapped to your back, your new bottle-ready dented spear in hand, and you realize something strange. You might actually make it home. Whatever home means now, the march away from the siege is slower than usual. Not because of the weight, but because of the weariness. Not exhaustion, not fear, just a kind of deep, bone-settled fatigue. You walk like a man who's forgotten how to rush. Every step is deliberate. Every mile is a conversation with your knees. No one talks. Occasionally someone coughs, or clears their throat like they want to speak, but no one does. What's left to say? That you made it, that you survived, that you stared death in the face and it shrugged and walked away. Instead, you listen to the rhythm of the march. Sandals scuffing earth, armor rattling softly like coins in a jar, the flap of loose cloth, the distant cry of a bird that doesn't know what you've been through. On the second day of marching, someone breaks the silence. Do you think we won? It's not sarcastic. It's not hopeful. It's just a question no one answers. Because no one knows. You pass through a village where children watch from doorways, clutching fruit. One of them offers a fig to a passing soldier. He accepts it with shaking hands, nods once, and keeps walking. You watch the boy wave. The soldier doesn't wave back. Not out of rudeness, he just doesn't remember how. The roads home, if that's really where you're going, are long and winding. Sometimes flat, sometimes steep, often pointless. You follow them anyway, because walking is all you've done for weeks now. Your feet know the way better than your head. Along the way, your group shrinks. Some men peel off when you pass near their villages. Some disappear without a word. You don't ask, you just keep moving. Eventually, the landscape starts to look familiar. Not exactly home, but close enough. You pass the kind of trees you grew up climbing. Smell the same herbs your mother used to hang in the kitchen. Hear the rustle of the wind through dry reeds and think, for a moment, that you're a child again. Your village hasn't changed much. It's still dusty, still quiet, still full of chickens that act like they own the place. A few people recognize you. They don't rush out. They don't cheer. They just nod, slow and somber, like they're seeing a ghost. Maybe they are. Your house is still standing. The roof still leaks. The door still sticks. But when you walk inside and breathe in the smell of dry wood and old clay, something softens in your chest. You sit, not on a battlefield, not on a stump or a rock or beside a cook fire, on a stool inside. You exhale, you're thinner. Your beard is patchy. Your feet are ruined. You still smell faintly like boiled onions and armor grease. But you're here. And that's more than some men got. At night, you lie down on something that resembles a bed. It's lumpy. It smells like goat. It's perfect. You stare at the ceiling and try to remember what peace feels like. It doesn't come right away. The silence makes you twitch. Every creak of the walls sounds like a command. Every shadow on the floor feels like the beginning of another attack. But eventually, your breathing slows. Your hands unclench. Your shoulders drop, and sleep, real sleep. Not the kind that comes in short bursts between horn blasts. Finally arrives. You dream of something simple. Warm bread, cool water, and a fig tree, heavy with fruit, and now let it all fade. Let the weight of armor, of worry, of endless marching, slip gently from your shoulders. The spear can rest now. The shield can be set down. There are no commands in the dark, no shouts, no horns, just stillness. You're far from the heat, far from the noise. The dust has settled. The war, for now, is quiet. Breathe in, slow and easy. Feel the earth beneath you, solid and warm. A bed, soft or rough, it no longer matters. You're home in your body, safe in this moment. Each breath steadies you, wrapping gently around your chest like a soft wool blanket pulled up to your chin. And as you drift, imagine a fig tree on a hill. It stands alone in the golden dusk, its branches heavy with fruit. The breeze hums through its leaves, warm and fragrant. You sit beneath it, the air sweet with memory. The sky is soft above you, the clouds lazy and kind. You have nowhere to be, no one to fight, no orders, no watch, just rest. You're whole, you're safe, you're done. Sleep now, soldier. You've earned it. Good night.